ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Dynamics on the Hardwood here. We got Darren, we got Livezone, CJ's with us as well. Fellas, how are we doing tonight?
Doing great, Denzel. We're doing great. We got a loaded episode, and I'm hyped for it. So,
yeah. How we
All
doing,
right.
Darren? Everything's going well with you, brother?
Going great, going great.
Yeah, as CJ mentioned here, we got an action-packed episode for you guys. Obviously, I don't want to go off on the rabbit trail, but I have to. We're Celtics diehard fans here. And, you know, Celtics forced a game 6 here. I'm telling you, the fluidity of the offense. Luke Cornett, MVP of the ball game, 7 blocks tonight, 10 points, 9 rebounds. Derek White, 34 points. I mean, the list goes on and on. So
Luke Cornett.
I'm telling you, Luke Cornett for the dub, dude, for real. But to me personally, I'm gonna say this real quick. I think the Celtics are still live in this series. Just the way how fluently they were on offense. And CJ remembers the episode we did. I think it was like my second or third episode I did with you, CJ. And I talked about when Jason Tatum's off the floor, the guys that step up. And Jaylen Brown normally averages around 4 assists a game. When Tatum's off the floor, he's up around 6 assists a game. He had 11 tonight. He had 11 assists tonight, along with 26 points. Was on triple-double watch for majority of the game. I think he came up a rebound or 2 short, but Celtics, you know, being the true champions that they are, they're not going to go down and out easy, and they force a game 6. And obviously, we have the other game going on tonight with Minnesota and the Golden State Warriors. Minnesota, last I saw, had an early lead at the end of the first quarter. But we'll get back to that stuff down the road. But we're going to start off with the NBA draft lottery here. And I mean, are you kidding me, guys? Like, this is ridiculous. Dallas, 1.8% chance to win the draft lottery. I think it's like the fourth or fifth lowest odds all time to win the draft lottery. Obviously, the 90, I think it's like the 92-93 Magic draft lottery was one where that one ping pong ball survived everything, and that was the whole Penny Hardaway situation there, as well as the Orlando Magic were an early franchise. It goes on and on the list there, but obviously Mavericks are 1, Spurs are 2, and the 76ers are 3. And so, CJ, I'm going to start with you. Winners and losers. Who's obviously, it's clear and obvious who the winner is, but what are your takeaways from the NBA draft lottery?
I think the winner clearly is, in my eyes, it's Dallas. But we kind of saw this coming. I mean, yeah, we have the guys like Charlotte and Utah that, you know, definitely should have had the biggest chance to land a guy like Cooper Flag. But when have we ever known the NBA to give small markets a chance? That's not how the NBA works. The NBA is based off of ratings. It's based off of big cities. It's based off of big markets. Dallas has become one of those big markets because of Luka Doncic. Now we have a trade where Luka gets sent to the biggest market in the NBA. Then after that, in exchange, they get the number 1 pick. And then after that, right below it, you have San Antonio and Philadelphia, which are also big market teams in the NBA. It makes perfect sense for the NBA and why they did it. I do think that this is rigged. I do. I think that this is. We're gonna get into this a lot more in the next coming weeks. So foreshadowing here,
Yeah.
but with the NBA, their goal is to make the big market teams have the big names, and Cooper Flag is going to be one of the biggest names in this offseason to come up, if not the biggest. So we've been talking about Cooper Flag all March Madness. We've been talking about Cooper Flag all college season. Now we're going to be talking about Cooper Flag going to Dallas. Do I see Dallas making a splash and trading Cooper Flag to a team like Milwaukee for Giannis? It's possible. It's possible for them to still mess this up. But as of what I see right now, Nico got very lucky, and San Antonio is in kind of a weird position because now they have De'Aaron Fox, they have Castle. Do they go and get the guy from Houston? Do they go and get Johnny Broom that's right now at 30, ranked 30th for no reason because we've been talking about him all college season? Do we see them go after a big man? What are we kind of seeing for San Antonio is the question. I do think the real answer is if you're in the top 5, you're going to have a good draft pick. It's going to be a good draft for the top 5 picks. Downwards, I'm not too fond of after that, but when I'm looking at the top 5, you have Dallas, San Antonio, Philly, Charlotte, and Utah. So those 5 teams are at least going to get one good guy. And I do see San Antonio really making a leap in this year's draft with having 2 top 10 picks. So I could see something happening with that too. But as of right now, yeah, it looks rigged. Yes, 1.8% chance of winning the draft lottery. Sounds like some BS to me. Sounds like they're trying to build a big market team to me. And as it looks like Dallas is going to be that big market.
All right, Darren, what are your thoughts on this? Any clear winners and losers? Obviously, the winner's obvious, but like, are there any other winners that you've seen out of the draft lottery here?
Yeah, I think CJ talked about the Spurs. Like I said, 2 top picks in the lottery. I think that's good trade bait. They have the 2 current rookie of the years, Castle and Wembanyama. Maybe they don't go for a rookie. They can use that as trade bait for something. I think it's easier to talk about the losers though, because we have seen in multiple years now the teams with the best odds, which is usually 14%, constantly get absolutely shafted, like 5 or below. Happened with the Pistons in the Wemby year. And I'm just starting to question what is the point of these odds. Like 3 teams had equal odds, and they all fell to 5, 6, and 7. Not even the top 4. I think that doesn't help the case because they all aren't as big markets. Charlotte, I mean, they moved up to 4, but it really kind of sets a precedent when you look at what's going on here. Like you can argue the rig thing, but it just seems weird that we're constantly seeing these consistent 14 percenters fall out, and I think those are the losers constantly who just keep losing their spot in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Darren. Looking at the teams that should have the number 1 pick, the teams that have the highest chance to get that number 1 pick, in the last 10 years, how many of them actually got the number 1 pick? That's the thing that you got to look at. Why are we having teams tank to get the best percentage for the number 1 draft pick to just be at the number 5 draft pick? It doesn't make sense to me. So for me, I just looking at it, I mean, we're going to be talking about this, so I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but we got 85, we got the hometown kids and LeBron and Derrick Rose. We got so many looks. We got so many looks on why, like, Magic and Bird for the Celtics and the Lakers in the 80s. Like, we have so many looks on how the draft could look really rigged and could look really sketchy. And this is probably number 1 case. And in a few years, we're going to be looking at this as that big case of why the NBA could be rigged. I mean, you send off your best player out of nowhere to to the one of the biggest markets, and then out of nowhere get the #1 pick at the end of the year. I mean, come on, it looks sketchy, you know.
Yeah, man. This is, yeah. It like you said, it's clear and obvious that Dallas is the winner of the complete and obvious winner. I mean, rigged. I mean, there's a lot of conspiracy theories with previous NBA drafts being rigged. Now, I will say this. Um, the clear winner is Nico Harrison. Like, let's just be real. Specifically, if we're
Is it
talking
though?
about one specific person, it's Nico Harrison. To trade away to, I don't want to say partially tank, because that is discrediting the effort of Najee Marshall and some of these guys that played for the Dallas Mavericks in the second half of the season after Kyrie went down. So I'm not going to do that. But to not partially tank, to make the play-in tournament, lose in the play-in tournament, and then to come out with the #1 draft pick. I mean, could we everyone point to it being rigged? Oh yeah. I mean, I think if there's any team that got this, you're trying to help Charlotte. Oh, you're trying to do, like, okay, so I mean, this obviously Cooper Flag fits the description of what Nico Harrison wants in Dallas, and that is defense wins championships, the quote unquote. And so Cooper Flag obviously fits that description of a wing guy that plays on both ends of the floor, is hard nosed, can shoot the three ball, can get to the rim when he wants to do all these little things, and he can play defense and lock up on the other side of the floor. And so, no doubt in my mind, Dallas and Nico Harrison is hearing the angelic angels, sing. He's hearing the choir sing right now, because he's the one. He's like Bill Belichick on draft night, sipping the mimosa, the meme we always see. Like,
Yeah.
that's Nico Harrison right now. Now, when we look at clear losers, the three teams that came in with the biggest odds to win this: Jazz, Wizards, Hornets. They go 4, 5, and 6. None of them hit the top 3, dude. So clear and obvious losers. You could even say another winner is the 76ers, because if the 76ers were to not be in the top 6, that draft pick would have went to the Oklahoma City Thunder.
So
And
that's another
imagine the
loser
Oklahoma
too.
City Thunder having a top 10, 6 through 10 draft pick. Imagine that, to add along with the abundance of riches that they already have out there.
Yeah.
And so 76ers is another winner itself, because they got a top 6 pick, and particularly the #3 pick. And what makes it difficult for the 76ers is 77% of the salary is to 3 players: Maxey, George, and Embiid.
That's gonna change.
77%
But
of the
that's gonna
salary.
I think
that's
that's a
gonna
great.
change. That's gonna change
Oh,
because they
no, the
don't have.
salary cap will go up. The salary cap will go up, but I'm just saying, as of this year's salary cap, 77% on the books is, it's
Yeah.
probably going to be more like 70% next year, with the salary caps probably going up the way they have been.
I'm not even worried about the salary cap going up. I'm worried about, is Paul George going to be on the Philadelphia 76ers next year?
Who's going to be healthy?
Exactly. But
Right.
I don't even think he's going to be part of that team. That team is loaded enough. They get the 3rd draft pick. They go get a small forward, and then to say, hey, see ya to Paul George. It's very possible for it to happen. And not even just that with Philly. I'm kind of skeptical on Philly, because look at what they've done in the draft the last time that they had a top 3 pick. I mean, Markelle Fultz was good, but he wasn't what everybody expected him to be. I'm not too sure that I trust Philly's process on drafting right now. And Not even just that, you talk about losers and winners, and you talk about how Philly's a winner. Well, now a loser is OKC because now they don't have that draft pick. But I also do think that a loser is also the Dallas Mavericks because if we look a little bit further back, yeah, you got the number one pick, but you could have sacrificed a championship for that number one pick. You know what I mean? Kyrie was having a great year. Luka was, I mean, Luka's Luka. And if you kept that team together, I mean, could they have won a championship, especially with a guy like Jason Tatum going down? I mean, it's very possible. So that's the thing that you also have to look at is if Luka was on Dallas, do we see Dallas actually rise up and go into that championship mode because now they have that experience? Well, now we don't get to see that because you traded off your best player for a rookie. You know what I mean? So it's a win-lose scenario for the Dallas Mavericks, and it still
Right.
could bite Nico in the ass. Like that's what we're getting down to.
And the other thing is too, to add on to your point, what spontaneous combustible thought is Nico Harrison coming up with now? Because is he like people are thinking, is he going to trade away the pick if there's an opportunity that Giannis might come
They would be
over
dumb
there?
to.
I mean, there's that thought process that is probably going through Nico Harrison's head, and there's been speculative trades, like speculative things where people are putting out things that possible trades might, the crazy trade obviously of Doncic and Anthony Davis. Someone put a trade of the number one draft pick Cooper Flag and Anthony Davis back to LA for Luka Doncic. Someone put that out there. Is that realistic? Absolutely not. But it shows that Nico Harrison is like, my boy is out there when it comes to like coming up with something like this. And still, like, there still is no the best way to put it for me is like there's still no like coping from the trade. Like people are still like, I'm still in disbelief myself from the trade. Like no one saw that coming. And now we have they get the number one pick, and it's just like you just traded away a top 3 player in the world right now.
Now here's something
Yeah.
that I could see Nico doing based off of what your trade process is on Nico Harrison. You know, everybody and their grandmother was looking at Kevin Durant when all these trades started happening and having Kevin Durant go to the Dallas Mavericks. I know that Kevin Durant is not the same Kevin Durant that we once knew in Golden State and OKC, but could we see Nico Harrison making a bad move and trading Cooper Flag for a guy like Kevin Durant?
I mean, and there's possible destinations there too, because like everyone's talking about Kevin Durant possibly going to the Houston Rockets. People have said the Houston Rockets could be a destination for Giannis. Like, there's so many different things that have been put out there in speculative reporting to the point where it's like, okay, can we get to the offseason fully first before we like? I'm waiting to see what that first domino is. Who's gonna go first? Giannis or KD? Whoever goes first, then everything else is gonna fall into place. And so, here's my question to you, Darren. I'll specifically ask you this one. If you had the number one overall pick and you had an opportunity to get Giannis, would you trade the pick to go try and get Giannis?
If I'm the Mavericks, I think just to like kind of backtrack, I see the situation about Nico, and I think we can all agree it's so easy to kind of hate on him because I mean, he has passed, just some silly things, but I still stand by that this was more of an owner's move than it was a Nico move. Probably just doing what he was told. New owners, they have definitely changed some things, but I mean, if I think they're thinking the way they are, I think it's obvious bet to go get Flag if they want to kind of maintain this. You want to win now, but you also need to build success in the future, even though they seem very adamant about winning now. I could see Giannis. I don't think Kevin Durant. I don't think that fits their identity where they want to prioritize defense, because I think we can all agree that Giannis is going to provide way more defense than KD at this stage in their careers. But I could see, I don't know if they have the draft capital to really push a Giannis trade. Mikal Bridges got traded for 5 first-round picks. I mean, I don't know if the Mavs are going to be able to top that, but we also saw them trade Luka for a first, so I don't know. I think Giannis would be the only target, though, they would consider for that first pick. So, I mean, anything's possible.
Now, the other thing that I have a question about, and maybe this is a question towards you guys, is our beloved Celtics. I mean, it's pretty clear that those boys are getting paid right now. Is there a chance that we could see the Boston Celtics reach out to the Dallas Mavericks and be like, hey, we have this. We'll give you this if you give us Cooper?
For Brown or Tatum though, because I don't with Kyrie out, I
I
don't think they're gonna want to consider Tatum. You know, I
I
don't.
I don't I don't I don't know. I don't know what you do. I mean, of course, I mean, looking at the team, of course the number one priority is to keep Jason Tatum, right? And obviously Jaylen Brown has the worst contract out of everybody else on the Boston Celtics. So I guess it would be Jaylen Brown, but if you could package like a Kristaps Porzingis and Derek White, or a Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday, I mean, do you do something like that?
I mean, Jalen's been in so many trade rumors. It feels like every offseason. And I know that
That's what I
contract
mean.
it's very inflated because Tatum makes a little more because they're both the high. They were Brown was the highest paid, and Tatum was the highest paid when they got
Yeah.
their extensions. You can argue Tatum definitely deserved his extension, and Brown, while he did deserve an extension, it is very high for his kind of. I mean, I'm not going to say Brown's a bad player. I know we love him in Boston, and he does his job, but you can argue that his caliber isn't of that contract, however you feel about that. So I
Yeah.
think I mean, like I said, with the whole second apron, even with any cap going up, it's still tough because if you want to retool this team for next season to be competent, you're either going to have to shed a lot of the bench or trade a star to kind of keep the bench. So I don't know if Brad Stevens would really go for that, would really trade. He seems very loyal because, I mean, Brown hasn't been traded yet. I feel like if he were to get traded, it would have happened by now.
Well,
So,
yeah, and that's the other thing that I'm talking about is, I look at this Boston Celtics team, and whenever Jason Tatum is not playing, Brown does better. Brown looks like a star out there when Tatum's not on the floor. So do you give up a guy like Jason Tatum for the potential of Brown becoming your number one guy? I mean, it looks possible. He looks like he's got that Kobe mentality. I mean, looking what he did in last postseason and looking what he did tonight. Do you make that move? I mean, do you move Tatum? Do you try to move Tatum, especially after the Achilles injury?
I think the biggest thing we talk about too when people are like discussing the Celtics and they talk about last year, how they were so well rounded and they dominated. Like their team is well rounded. It's honestly one of, I think, when healthy, the best units because you have these guys off the bench who could be starters. Like even when you have like KP Hurton coming off the bench, it's unfair. So like when they talk about Tatum and they're giving him discredit, they're like, oh, Tatum has all these teammates around him. So it's so easy to say like when you're looking at it as a whole, you have a team you can't go to your full potential because when you have Tatum and Brown, they're like the perfect 1-2. So one's never going over the top because they don't need to. So like yeah, when Tatum's out, we always see Brown kind of like overperform, and like I am
But
genuinely curious if that's like a
but
consistent level if he was off
when
the
we
team.
when we see Jason Tatum without Jalen Brown, he doesn't overperform. That's my problem with Jason Tatum. And when we look at Jason Tatum overperforms when he's in the playoffs. We look at Jason Tatum. I know it's been said on ESPN, but I've been saying it since, the get-go. Jason Tatum has the most 50-point games in the Celtics uniform. And he's only what, 26, 27, something like that?
27.
Yeah, 27. I mean, Jason Tatum, I'm not saying that Jason Tatum is not the clear star of the Celtics because obviously he is. And obviously, I think Jason Tatum could go down as one of the best Celtics of all time, if not the best, depending on how many championships he gets around him. Because if he gets more than, what, three? I mean, in this era of basketball, if he gets something like 5 or 6 in this era of basketball, that's like Bill Russell getting 11 in the 70s and 80s or
50s and
60s and 70s.
60s.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50s and 60s. So I mean, like that's the kind of the thing I'm saying is if we, because we've been hearing about this, Cooper Flag saying, "Hey, who wouldn't love to get drafted by their hometown team and everything like that," and hinting over towards Boston. And now it's circling back around where Boston is now trying to move pieces and they're trying to get younger so they can get rid of those contracts. I could see Cooper Flag somehow becoming a Boston Celtic. Yeah, it's a far stretch compared to him just staying on Dallas or going to like a Phoenix Suns or going to a Houston Rockets, but I could see it happening.
Ooh, I mean, yeah, the Celtics are in a very precarious position based off of the contracts they've given out. And obviously this year was the first year Jaylen Brown was in his contract extension, the 5-year, $304 million. Next year will be the first year Jason Tatum's contract extension will hit of the 5-year, 314, 320, whatever the number is. So next year will be the first official year. They're both hitting $50+ million in hitting cap space between the two of them. And the big thing is like Jason Tatum is looking to be out all next year. Like Celtics fans, for those who are watching, I'm telling you, next year, don't expect Jason Tatum to come back next year. I'm just telling you that right now, right from the get-go. And that's $50 million in cap space. That's just dead money because that player's not on the floor. And so the Celtics, now I will say this, Brad Stevens has really done a nice job at adapting players on the fly. And we could talk about Al Horford and Drew Holiday and Derek White. He got those players on the fly to assemble the team that he has now. And it's going to be difficult to see. I mean, obviously, there's going to be multiple ways that teams can make an offer to Boston. I mean, I'm not discrediting Boston trying to, I mean, if it comes down to something like that to get a Cooper Flag, I mean, Boston's gonna have to do something next. I mean, they're like, I think their total salary is like $227 million. It's something in the north of 220, and it's like the luxury tax is gonna kill them next year if they don't. And like, there's been speculative stuff all season long. Celtics can't keep the band together. They overpaid, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, at the same time, though, they know their time to win is now. And so this is where I give credit to not just Brad Stevens as a GM, but the ownership before it changed hands to the new guy here. They set themselves up for success in the future. Now, granted, there's obviously a big price to pay, 9-figure money. But at the same time, though, I'm very curious to see what Boston's going to do in the offseason, because now Tatum's down. Do you keep the tandem together of Tatum and Brown? I mean, what are you going to do with Porzingis? Porzingis, I think, is 3-year, $60 million contract. I think next year, is the last year of that contract. You got Pritchard on for 4 years. I think Cornette signed a 4-year contract extension sometime this year. Like, there's also, and then we can't forget JD Davis.
Everybody signed for the next
right, exactly.
2 years.
And it's like one guy goes off. Like, I think they're pretty much everyone signed through 28, the 27-28 season, and then someone leaves at the 28, someone leaves at the 29. Those contracts end one by one by the end of like 2030, I believe, is the year that all those contracts are finished up. And so we can't forget JD Davison. JD Davison is, now granted, he's not going to be making big dollar amount, a big dollar amount sign, but we have to remember, he made G League MVP. He has a guaranteed 2-year contract, NBA contract now in the league, because he was G League MVP. So now you have to I know it's not big time money. It's probably NBA contract minimum, or maybe just above the contract minimum, the veteran minimum. But at the same time, though, it's like, now you have to weigh that. Could he be an asset to another team? I think no player on this current roster right now is safe, especially with the structure of the team and the salary cap. And Darren, you hit it right on the head. I believe Brad Stevens is very loyal too. Like that, I mean, year after year, we've heard the Jaylen Brown.
Look at what they did to Marcus. Look at
Well,
what
if
they
Danny
did.
Ainge was here, somebody would be gone by now. But
absolutely. If it was Danny Ainge, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think there's no doubt in my mind if Danny Ainge was still the GM. yeah, he would absolutely have someone would have been moved by now, for sure. But yeah, no, it's I'm very curious to see what Boston will do in this offseason once the season's said and done. Who are they moving? Because it's clear and obvious they're going to have to move someone, and who knows? They could be trying to. You never know what Brad Stevens has got up his sleeve, and I mean we've seen that like the Derek White acquisition, dude. I still think that's what Derek White, Drew Holiday, those two acquisitions that completed the starting five. That is like I'm not. I mean, it's probably the best starting five in the modern era of basketball. Like the versatility from the 1 through 5 spot with a healthy, with everyone being healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, like you give Brad Stevens a ton of credit in how he's built this roster, and he's built this roster for success. Unfortunately, they've paid a little too much out, but I'm not saying none of these guys are deserving to win, but get that kind of money. But we're seeing the effects of it now.
Now, I do want to say something on the Boston Celtics side. You said that you don't think that there's anybody that's safe. I'm going to tell you right now, I think 2 players are safe right now. And I think those 2 players are the 2 players that have that Boston mentality, and that's Derek White and Jaylen Brown. I don't think that the Boston Celtics are going to get rid of either of those guys. And the reason why I don't say Jason Tatum is because I'm kind of looking at Jason Tatum as the Shaquille O'Neal in this type of situation. I'm not saying that they're anywhere near comparable with gameplay,
Right.
but when Shaq left the Lakers, what did Kobe do? He went off and had the best year of his career. I think that if Jason Tatum was to leave the Boston Celtics, I really do think that we would see Jaylen Brown be like that type of player where he would have a career year, and we would see Jaylen Brown rocket himself to the best shooting guard in the league, and then they would build around him. That's what I'm seeing in Jaylen Brown, and we saw it tonight. We saw what he could do tonight, and that's
You took the words right out of my mouth, dude. We saw exactly what Jaylen Brown can do. And I mean, this gives you a glimpse of what Boston's going to be like next season, depending on who's there.
Yeah, and I agree 110% with that. I think if you're going to keep it, obviously the goal is to keep those 2 guys together. I almost said T-Mac and Vince. It's to keep Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum together, because that is the big goal, right? So those are the 2 guys you want to keep. If I'm looking at a contract that I'm getting rid of, the obvious contract to get rid of is Kristaps Porzingis. He has not played the way that he played this season at all. He has not been the same player that we saw last season. And I don't know if that has anything to do with him being in and out of the lineup, but I think it also has to do with, listen, Kristaps is just injury prone all the time. He's a great player when he's on the floor, but when he's off the floor, he's a liability. And you got to actually look into that and be like, all right, well, we're going to either restructure your contract to what you're worth, or we're going to trade you because you can't stay on the court for more than 60 games a year. It's ridiculous, you know?
I mean, and to add to that last comment there, I mean, we saw it tonight. I mean, Luke Cornett, dude, like it's not a bad thought there, CJ. With Porzingis being injury prone, he's been like this since what, 2016. 2016 was like the last year he played over 70 games in a regular season, and so it's obviously playing over 70 games in a regular season is a complete lost start in today's NBA. Let's just be honest, but it just shows the longevity of it just shows how fragile. Let's put it that way. It shows how fragile Porzingis is on a year-to-year basis, and we saw that last year in the postseason run with the foot injury, the rare foot injury of all things. But it's like we see it year after year with Porzingis when he was at the Knicks, Dallas, all the teams he's been on through his career, and yeah, I mean, watching Cornette, man, I'm telling you, dude. I mean, I've been getting so annoyed all this season. I got so annoyed at Scalabrine because he kept talking Cornette's praises. And I'm like, okay, we see it. He's improved. Tonight, we really saw it with Cornette. Blocking a shot, saving the ball in bounds, like, and he's playing help defense. Brunson thought he was going to get to the rim all night long. And all of a sudden, this big palm comes out of nowhere and blocks Brunson's shots. He did it on back-to-back possessions in the late third, early fourth quarter. It's like, so, I mean, who knows? Who knows what will happen with the Boston Celtics?
My
I
last
mean,
my
yeah.
last point is going to be this. When we saw the 90s Bulls, and the reason why I say the 90s Bulls is because I could see it happening with the Boston Celtics right now, especially if they somehow win another championship with Jaylen Brown at the head of the team.
Mhm.
If they are going to change up the lineup. We saw it with the 90s Bulls. They got rid of Horace Grant. They got rid of Paxson. And then what did they do after? They brought in Rodman. They brought in Harper. They brought in other pieces. They brought in Kukoc. That's what's going to separate this Celtics team from the great teams. We have to see Brad Stevens reassess the team and be like, okay, well, we're going to keep our two guys. Now we just need to put the other pieces there. And he's going to put the other pieces there. It's just a matter of who it's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely well said. Darren, any closing comments on anything here?
Yeah, just so, because we talked about kind of next season, I think it's very evident that I really don't see a scenario where Tatum and Brown won't be on the roster next year. But to kind of bring together what CJ said, I think it's not the worst thing that could happen, but in Tatum's regard, if Brown has a really good season next year, like we're talking like MVP caliber, that's going to put next offseason into a really tricky spot where, Tatum's coming back healthy. That's when he becomes a little more of a tradable asset, getting deeper into the extension. So I wonder, just like, if we look at, because I mean, with Tatum, I feel like we see like 1 week out of the year season, he's like an MVP candidate, and then he just kind of tapers off. If Brown has a full season where he's the number one guy, I think we could potentially see something like that. Depends on how they retool the team. But I think that could put the Celtics in a really tricky position a year later down the line if Brown goes crazy and it's more evident that he can be the star of a team without Tatum on it.
Yeah, and not even just that, Darren. I'm looking at it as Jaylen Brown is already the star on the Boston Celtics team. I like you ask other people that are not in the Boston area and everything like that, or hasn't known the Boston teams and how they work and all that. They're gonna tell you that Jason Tatum is the clear star because Jason Tatum has all the marketing behind him. But when you look at the basketball games and when you look at what they're doing, there's a reason why Jaylen Brown got the Finals MVP last year. That's all I'm gonna say.
That defense.
It's right in front of your face. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, we love Tatum here, but
Right.
too, because I feel like he gets really thrown under the radar for no reason. Because
I
he was
agree.
very key in that Finals.
No, I agree, but I'm just saying, if Brown has that year, you have to look at Brown as the star of the Boston Celtics.
Can't say it any better, and especially if they find a way to force Game 7 and pull out this series. This series is still live.
My prediction stays the same: Celtics in 7.
Yeah. So Celtics are very live in this series, and people thought there was an overreaction because the sports books had the Celtics favored by 4.5, 5.5 in today's game, and people are like, "Oh, I'm on the Knicks." Everyone and their mother was on the Knicks. The points.
Yep.
You guys who bet that, tell me the final score.
I know
All
few
right.
people. I know a few people. A few people. I stopped from doing that. They were like, "Dude, the Knicks are gonna kill them," and I was like, "You're in Boston. You know how Boston are. Like, you know how Boston teams are. Do not do that bet. Do not."
And the perfect thing is tonight, there was such a fluidity to the offense tonight. Guys were moving without the ball. I see
They
it.
were going to the hole. They
That's
were
all
going to the hole
That's
finally.
all we ask. Please stop shooting.
Yeah,
That's
like
all we have.
just do it 20 times a game and we're good. I
Right.
promise. You know. Like,
Yeah, I mean, we saw it tonight, and the like I said, the fluidity of the offense was brilliant tonight. There just seemed to everyone was in a nice flow and a nice rhythm. They were getting good shots on every single possession. It wasn't like, okay, we got one good shot. Okay, 8 straight possessions in a row. Bad, heavily contested, ugly shots. Like they said Cornette set a backdoor screen for Peyton Pritchard and Derek White, and they got layups off of it in the fourth quarter. Imagine if they were doing that in game 1 and game 2. This series is a wrap, even if Tatum wasn't playing. Like, enough said. But yeah, so we're gonna move on to our next topic of the night here, and it's correlated right with the NBA draft lottery. And it has to do with the 1985 NBA draft lottery, and was the 1985 draft rigged? And CJ's already poked the bear with this one in our first segment. So CJ, I will give you the floor, and tell me what your thoughts are about the 1985 draft.
yeah, I mean, we look at the 1985 draft and we look at, the big star being Patrick Ewing. But what isn't being looked at is that the NBA was very, well, drug infested, and they were trying to save their TV deal, because if they didn't get their stuff together and if big markets didn't start showing up, they were going off television, and that would have hurt the NBA. So looking at the 3 picks, Denzel, can you tell me the 3 picks that were the top 3 of that draft class?
I mean, outside of Patrick Ewing, I couldn't give you the other two. I'm
Yeah,
gonna be honest.
I just need the teams, because we look at big market teams. I was talking to you guys about this in the first segment. Big market teams were very key. We looked at Chicago, we looked at Boston, we looked at LA. Now we're looking at New York and Detroit. Those were the other big markets that were being assessed in the NBA. It makes sense that the NBA would rig this because of the television deal, because of what was going on, and not even just that. We look at like what happened in the '85 draft, the lottery. The guy that put in because they used to actually do the wheel and have the big cards. The
Right.
actual card that they had for the New York Knicks had a big dent in it. I've seen other conspiracy theories saying that they froze the card so they knew it was cold, so they knew it was New York. I don't think that one really makes sense. I think the
Yeah.
bend in the corner really does make it for me. But at the same time, the person who put in the cards to the big ball that they turned, he was also the part owner of the New York Knicks. He had what is it, stock in New York. And New York
Mhm.
is,
Right.
we look at New York as, a big market, but in sports, they're not the biggest market in the world. They're not LA, they're not Miami, they're not Boston. That's what they were trying to do. They were trying to make New York the next big market, the next big team. I personally think it's rigged. I personally think that the whole NBA draft system has been rigged. And knowing David Stern, I mean, come on, he's kind of had a pass for this kind of stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if it is. Now I'm personally wondering what you guys are thinking on this. Do you think that the '85 draft was rigged? Do you think that the NBA drafts now are rigged? And if you do, does this mean that they were doing betting before betting on apps was a thing? Do you think that they had bets on who was going where? Do you think that David Stern was trying to feed something so they could have that television deal? What do you guys think it was actually going on?
Yeah, on my notes I wrote "Knicks good equals good TV." I think at that point they were 12 years removed from their last championship, and I mean we can argue that New York's the mecca of basketball if you want to get into that. Obviously, I agree that their sports market is a little weird. Like, I'd take LA over them in the sense of like notoriety, but we can argue that I think we can all agree that when the Knicks are good, basketball is a little more fun. Even as like, I just feel like the Celtics was the Knicks were so kind of in a weird spot, kind of growing up as Celtics fans. But I just think when they're better, it's more fun. And I look at the Knicks at that point. We can talk about like the NBA really needing to change how everybody viewed them with the whole like Magic coming in, Larry coming in. They were changing kind of the TV deals and the way people viewed them. So, timing is everything. And Patrick Ewing's a very good prospect. And I mean, I look what he did for the Knicks. So I think it worked out for them. I agree. I mean, the bent card, when you rewatch that, it is a little questionable. It's hard to get into this like rig stuff because there's so many angles, but it does feel off because I look at somebody like David Stern, and I mean, it felt like he always kind of meddled in some things that really wasn't his, like just to kind of go off a little bit but keep it together. Like when the NBA owned at the time New Orleans Hornets, we remember they tampered a little bit with the CP3 thing, and then even the year I don't know if the NBA still owed them, but like look at the 2012 draft when the Bobcats, who had won a whopping 7 games, got the second pick, and the Pelicans got AD. Like again, I don't know, I can't confirm if they still owned the Pelicans at that time, but things like that kind of tie back to '85, and it all seems like David Stern was a little, I don't know, but it is a little weird. And even since they changed the draft system in 2019, where the Knicks, everybody thought they were getting Zion, and then the Pelicans get them after losing AD. Another similar experience to Luka and Cooper here.
It's a good one.
It just, sorry, I'm a little trailing off a bit, but
No,
yeah,
you're good.
85 draft feels about as questionable as everything else. I can't confirm nor deny it, but there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the NBA.
Yeah, and I'm gonna show you guys my notes here. So say if this was two, you guys can't even see it. That kind of sucks. But say if there was two papers that I had in my hand that had teams on it. The paper that had the New York Knicks was facing me, and the paper that had the second pick was facing the back. And they put the back one on, and they grabbed the New York one because they grabbed 2 cards at the same time. I mean, I love David Stern, but David Stern did a lot of things to make sure that the NBA was relevant, and I have a feeling that with that television deal and with them needing to make more big market teams, I have a feeling that that was one of the things that he pushed right there, is that he wanted to make New York a big team.
Yeah. So to answer your question, what you asked earlier, the other two, the number 2 and the number 3 pick went to the Indiana Pacers and the Los Angeles Clippers. Number 3 was the LA Clippers.
There you go.
So
That's why
there's
no
those top
big market teams there.
Exactly. And so there's a compelling case for 1985. Like you said, the big market. We have the Celtics. We have the Lakers. Must-see TV. Everyone, I think even people of my generation that never saw a lick of 80s basketball live, everyone knows the saying, NBA, it's fantastic. Like everyone remembers those slogans from the 1980s and the TV deals and stuff. And obviously the 80s were pretty much ruled by the Lakers and Celtics. They were must-watch TV. And I think David Stern wanted to try and find a way to get other teams, other markets involved, and particularly a big market, the New York Knicks. Now, I will say this. Some of the stuff I'm about to bring up kind of discredits the 85 draft being rigged in a sense. But 1985, if we do a little background history here, 1985 was the first year the NBA introduced the draft lottery. And obviously, this system was implemented to address concerns that teams might intentionally lose games to increase their chances of winning the coin flip. Now, for those who don't know the coin flip was from 1966 to 1984, where the worst team of each conference met together and they did a coin flip. Whoever heads is one team, tails is the other team. And whatever that coin landed on, that was the number 1 pick, and then the other side was the number 2 pick. And so it's just funny that we're talking 40 years ago, and we're still talking about tanking. And there is so much parity with the draft lottery now. We're seeing it in today's NBA. 1.8% from the Dallas Mavericks winning the draft lottery. And obviously there's other compelling cases. The Orlando Magic in the 90s, in the mid-90s there. The Penny Hardaway, Chris Webber draft there, where one ping pong ball found its way through everything and got the number 1 overall draft pick for the Orlando Magic. So there's all sorts of compelling things. So number 1 is that was the first year the lottery was introduced. Number 2 is the Knicks had a 24-58 record the year before. Yeah. And obviously some people who know the mid-80s Knicks, we're talking about our good friend Bernard King and what a stud he was for the Knicks before he tore his ACL. And so they had a 24-58 record, which was the 3rd worst record that year. And when I looked to the records that year, the worst records were, there was a tie for the worst record. The Golden State Warriors and the Indiana Pacers at 22-60. So they had the 3rd worst record based off of the draft lottery, the newly implemented draft lottery. They had the 3rd best odds to win the number 1 overall pick, even though I will admit we're tumbling cards in a big wheel, and we're doing this draft lottery thing with the now maybe it might not have been as complex with the ping pong balls, but still, so it's so the Knicks had a very good chance of winning the number 1 overall pick. Obviously everyone knows Patrick Ewing, the whole thing going to Cambridge Ridge High School back in the early 80s, Georgetown, John Thompson, the list goes on and on about Patrick Ewing. Fun fact for you, this is on a side note, my mom went to high school with Patrick Ewing, and I'll leave it there. That's how wild this is.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's a flex.
So
that's
my
a
mom
flex.
my mom was a cheerleader in high school with Patrick Ewing, went to high school at Cambridge Ridge and Latin. So like this like I could go on and on about that. But so those couple of things with the new draft lottery system being put in play in 85, the first year of that, plus the Knicks having a good chance of winning the NBA draft, that number 1 overall pick. But I can't get over, I mean, dude, CJ, I've watched that video you sent me, like that 6-7 minute video that you sent me. I watched it like 3 times over, and I'm like, man, that bank card is a little obvious, man. Like you look at all the other cards, I was like,
and he
like,
picked up 2. He picked up 2 at the same time, and he said, "Which one is New York?"
And dude, you see the way he threw the New York one in there?
Yeah.
I mean, he whipped that thing in there. So
yeah.
I cannot. I think there's a little bit of a yes and no answer to this question. I think David Stern absolutely wanted another big market team to have a big, number 1 draft pick to start to become relevant. And, I'm just going to say this. If we had a healthy Bernard King and Patrick Ewing playing together, who knows what the back half of the 80s and 90s would have looked like.
Yeah.
In the early 90s would have looked like. So I will leave it there in that scenario. But I mean, I think
Ralph. It's kind of like Ralph Sampson and Hakeem. It's kind of like that same.
Yeah, imagine if those guys stayed together. I know the list. I mean, the list goes on and on the what if of Bernard King and Patrick Ewing, because Bernard King was at the peak of his powers when Patrick Ewing was a rookie. And
no, continue.
Oh, okay. I thought you got something to say there, but
no.
I can't knock you guys. I can't knock you, CJ, for. I mean, it's there. Like the case is there for the draft being rigged. with the big market team and trying to implement things. And for those who don't know, David Stern, the commissioner from 84 to, I believe, 2014, David Stern was the ultimate capitalist. Like, that's no ifs, ands, or buts around that. And I could go on and on about David Stern. Everyone, there's speculation of, did he secretly suspend MJ, and there's that whole thing. And so it just proves the point that David Stern is the ultimate capitalist. He's all about bringing in revenue. You can't talk about the history of the league without talking about David Stern and his monstrous contributions as an NBA commissioner. And so I can't talk you off of there being a partial rigging there, knowing how much of a capitalist David Stern was in his tenure as commissioner.
Now, I will say two things off of that. I love how you said that David Stern was, really in the NBA history books, because without him, we wouldn't have half of the stuff that we had in the NBA at the time. But I'm going to let you know something. I think David Stern, even with all these rigged NBA drafts that we're going to be getting into in the next few weeks and everything like that, I really do think he did a better job than Adam Silver is doing right now. That might be a hot take, but I'm just not a fan of what Adam Silver is doing. I was a huge fan of what David Stern was doing, because when David Stern was commissioner, it wasn't there wasn't a lot of big threes happening. Like, if David Stern was commissioner, that big four in Golden State wouldn't have happened. You know what I mean? KD would have still been, around OKC, or maybe went to Boston to go play with IT or something like that. So I respect David Stern on that part.
Yep.
I will say, though, with the 85 draft, now, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to look up Larry Bird's draft. He got drafted a year before Magic, but they got on the floor the same year, correct?
Yeah, Larry stayed in college. The Celtics kind of cheated the system. I don't know how that all went alone.
Yeah, because they had a draft pick where I think it was like a traded draft pick, and they could have either, I don't know what the stance was on it, but they picked Larry Bird a year before Magic went to the league, and they both went into the league together. Now we look at 84. Who came out of 84? I mean, it's pretty simple. Greatest of all time.
MJ.
Yep. And now the year after, we get Patrick Ewing. It looks like to me that they were trying to save a TV deal the same way they were trying to save the NBA in the 80s. David Stern did a real good job of doing that. So, yes, I do think it's rigged. Do I think it was rigged in a bad way? No. But I do think the way that Adam Silver is rigging these drafts is clearly more obvious. Like, at least they tried to hide this. You know what I mean? Like, at least, like a bent corner on a piece of paper. Like, not a lot of people are thinking about that until afterwards. You know what I mean? But Adam Silver with the Dallas Mavericks, and like you said, with the Pelicans and everything like that, I just can't get behind what Adam Silver's doing with the NBA draft.
Yeah, that was an excellent point with Larry Bird and the 78 draft. They drafted him a year prior, and he stayed that year, and they met against Magic in Michigan State in the NCAA championship game. I tell you right now, Red Auerbach knew, Red
Auerbach, he knew the
Bill
system.
Belichick
He worked that.
He
worked that system. He worked that system like 3 different times. Like,
he
was
dude.
that
And
good.
So, yeah, exactly. And so he found an old loophole in the system, and I mean, like you said, I think it was rigged in a good way, because I mean, look at the ascension of how popular the NBA became. Like, I mean, the Knicks Bulls series in those 90s bloodbath series, man. That was like those were fun games to watch. To watch the
Yep.
Knicks wanting to beat the Bulls so bad. They were like a second coming of the bad boys, tough, physical brand of basketball.
I
But they
think
just
I think high key a better rivalry than the Bad Boys. Because
I don't.
MJ and Ewan were both at the top of their game.
Mhm.
Isaiah was only at the top of their game when MJ met him. You know what I mean? I think the real rivalry of the 90s, when I think of 90s, I think of the Chicago Bulls versus the New York Knicks.
Yeah. Yeah, those teams, and you know, there was like a lot of revenge factors in those Knicks Bulls games, even in the regular season, because a lot of people forget that Charles Oakley was a veteran on that team when they drafted Scottie Pippen in '90,
Yep.
and so like there was a little blood there between Pippen and Oakley, and Oakley was always a tough guy, but he was a great defensive rebounder for them in the late '80s, and on it, I mean, John Starks always did something stupid to get under Jordan's skin, and you had Anthony Mason.
Underrated.
Oh,
Underrated.
you could arguably say that's one of the more underrated uh, playoff. That's one of the more underrated rivalries in NBA history. I mean, like it's not. I don't think it's
Sports
talked about
history.
enough.
Not even just NBA history, sports history.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Because whenever you talk about the Jordan, uh, the '90s Jordan double three-peats there, you always think of the bad boys because he had to get over that hump to get to that first ring. And so it took them 3 years to finally get over the hump. And people don't realize that the Knicks were generating and evolving at that time. As I like to say, Pat Riley's alter ego. Everyone knows him for the LA Lakers Showtime. And then when he got to the Knicks, it was like tough, like bash your head in, kind of like an alter ego of Pat Riley.
Didn't he also coach the beginning of the Miami Heat? Like
He
Tim
took over.
Hardaway Jr. years.
I think he was the coach. Then they hired Van Gundy, and then he took the role again when they won.
Yeah,
06.
that's what I thought.
That's it's a really good question because I have not.
Pat Riley was a very underrated coach.
Oh, and I mean,
Like he started off as an announcer for the LA Lakers before he became the coach.
yeah. So actually, no, you hit it right on the head, man. He was the coach of Miami from 95, 96 to 08.
Yep.
So, yeah, he was coaching the Miami Heat. So we're talking those Alonzo Mourning, Tim Hardaway, Tim Hardaway Sr.
Right as soon as Miami came out, he was there. He was like,
Right.
yes, I'll make that a big market. Don't you worry.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, no, definitely for sure. But with that being said, we're going to go to our first break. We're going to go to Atlanta Seafood and Steaks. So as always, as my boy CJ always says, stay tuned.
Welcome to good food. At Atlanta Steaks and Seafood, you'll find the highest quality meats from a variety of delicious cuts, tomahawks, salmon fillets, ribeyes, and plenty more to choose from. With an easy-to-use, mobile-friendly website, selecting your pick of meat is made quick and easy. And don't forget, worrying about your dinner is a thing of the past. Check out some of the amazing subscription packages that Atlanta Steaks and Seafood has to offer. Fresh steak and seafood straight to your door. Order online at atlantasteaksandseafood.com.
And we're back here with Dynamics on the Hardwood. As you guys just saw there with the ad, Atlanta Seafood and Steaks. Yep, CJ, you can beat me over the head with a baseball bat. I still haven't gotten anything yet.
Nah,
But,
yeah, I definitely recommend.
if you guys haven't, CJ highly recommends Atlanta Seafood and Steaks. You kind of saw what the cream of the crop there, the pick of the crop there with all the steaks and all the sirloin stuff there. Listen, I'm salivating just watching it. So
we talk about Omaha steaks and everything like that. I think they're just on the same level as them. They're just a little bit cheaper to go out and get from Atlanta Seafood and Steaks instead of going to a place like Omaha and paying a fortune. So yeah, I definitely recommend. Go say hi to Terry on Facebook as well. That and yeah, he'll get you right. Trust me. He gives some good packages out. I've gotten a few myself. So
yeah, I was getting ready to ask you who the guy was because I couldn't remember his name. I was like, he begins with a T. I couldn't remember his name.
yeah.
But with that being said, man, we are just on a flow right now today because we're sitting here finishing off the conversation talking about Pat Riley there in our last segment there about the '85 draft being rigged, and of course we got a little bit more pettiness with Pat Riley in the situation of him not showing any remorse in not giving Jimmy Butler a contract extension. This came out, I would say late last week, early midweek, we got that. Pat Riley had some more comments about the Jimmy Butler saga and how things went down there. And so much pettiness in this, as it says in the title here. But Darren, I'm gonna come to you on this one, my brother. What are your thoughts of Pat Riley continuing to not show remorse in not giving Jimmy Butler a contract extension? One, my main question is, did Jimmy Butler deserve a contract extension?
This is a funny conversation because CJ definitely knows my opinion on this. That's why I'm laughing. I think it all kind of trails back to, there's a lot we can go into. There was the comments in the first round of 2024 playoffs when they were playing the Celtics. Jimmy was hurt, wasn't playing that series, and he was very confident that he could beat the Celtics and ended up losing that series. And I remember Pat Riley, after the series, was like, don't do that. Then it kind of started this long drama that trailed into this season. I think we can all agree that Jimmy Butler in Miami was an interesting ride. It had two great seasons, some up and down in the middle. But, you can't argue two finals appearances. I think at that point, I can understand why the Heat wouldn't want to give an extension. His age, the amount he was asking for, I think there's pettiness on both sides. I think Pat Riley is really showing his age. His old style of basketball just doesn't work in this new age. We talked about Adam Silver before and how he's turned this league into a bit of a player-dominant league where players kind of dictate more now. So I think Jimmy Butler is just being Jimmy Butler. But with Pat Riley, I think while I understand some of it, it is kind of becoming a little let's just drop it, if he's still being petty about it. But yeah, it's a weird situation. And I'm surprised it's still going on. I thought once he was traded, we could just kind of close the curtain. What do I know?
Yeah. CJ, what are your thoughts on this? Because
Man. Well, Darren already knows my take on this as well. So, because we had a little bit of a debate off screen back when the trade was happening. Listen, I understand why Pat Riley is doing what he's doing, right? Pat Riley is a businessman. He looks at the NBA as a business. He's very smart when it comes to this. If he's saying something like this, it means that he's seeing something in the near future. I don't know what it is yet. So I understand it to an extent on his side. But at the same time, I'm going to look at you guys and I'm going to say two things to you, okay? This is about Jimmy Butler. We look at the Miami Heat. We look at some of the players that Pat Riley has coached. Not even just that, but Pat Riley has gotten on this Miami team in the last 2 decades. And I know you can name at least 5 of the names on the top of your head. I'll let you guys do it right now. Denzel, can you name 5 Miami Heat players in the last 2 decades?
Oh, I mean, Dwayne Wade, Jason Williams. I mean, the list goes. I mean, I could go on and on for days on this. I mean, LeBron James, Chris Bosh, Ray Allen. Like, there's
Yeah,
five. I mean,
yeah. All right, Darren, how
mean,
about you?
Yeah,
Name.
I think I get your point. You're talking about how like he made the Heat because I can talk about Mario Chalmers, and I can talk about, like you said, the early Heat, Tim Hardaway. Talked about the big three. So a lot of their bench players. Man, I'm embarrassed and I'm skipping names here. Shane Battier. Wow, I'm so bad at this.
All right, well, you
Gary
guys said
Payton.
enough.
I'm sorry, my
You
brain
guys
does
said
not work,
enough.
but I get your point, Gary Payton. We're talking about like how
Yeah.
these.
Yeah.
These
I'll
players iconic.
give you 5 names. I'll give you 5 names right off the get go. Okay, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Alonzo Mourning, and we'll say Shaquille O'Neal. Okay, we'll say those 5 names. We look at the players that they have had over the last 2 decades. Jimmy Butler has 7 of the 10 best performances of the Miami Heat in the last 3 decades that the Miami Heat has been a team. 7 of out of 10 best performances in a Miami Heat uniform come from Jimmy Butler. And you're going to tell me after those 2 finals appearances, after what he did in the bubble, that he does not deserve a contract of what he wanted for an amount of money? You're going to tell me Jimmy Butler is not a star? I mean, I'll put it to you like this. How's Miami doing in the playoffs right now? Yeah, you coughed. You coughed because they choked, right? They choked. Correct.
I mean, listen. Let me say it to you this way: they're the first 10 seed to win the play-in tournament and make the actual playoff. No 10 seed, 9 or 10 seed, prior to the Miami Heat doing it this year, won those 2 games to get into the playoffs, only to get their Carreras whooped by the Cleveland Cavaliers in round 1. That's your reward. That was your reward.
So not only did they get whooped by the number 1 seed, but then the number 1 seed got whooped by the Indiana Pacers.
Oof.
So you tell me how the Miami Heat was actually doing this year. Do you think it would have been better if they had Jimmy Butler there?
I think
That's the conversation. That's the whole conversation right there. If Jimmy Butler is on this team and is on the floor playing his ass off like he did, are the Miami Heat in a better situation right now?
It's tricky because, like, I think it's easy to argue that, but I think the bridges were already burnt. And, I mean, they didn't want to pay a guy that, I mean, when Jimmy's playing, we know he's good. You know, that's not the debate. But unfortunately, going on to the Heat, there were a lot of injuries post the finals when they lost to the Nuggets. And I get that thought process. It does suck because, like, I mean, the Heat we know aren't exactly what they did with D Wade. So, like, loyalty has always kind of been a question. I'm not surprised by Pat Riley's move. Like, on paper, it makes sense. You know, like, financially, business-wise, it just is unfortunate the way it worked out because I mean, both players deserve better in the end of their kind of twilight. But, I mean, if you look at right now, like, with Jimmy Butler, if he was still on the Heat, if he had come back, I think it would still be a weird, you know, I don't know if he's playing. I think in the long run, it's better if they're doing a youth movement. I think it would just better if they were like, we want to go young, and Jimmy, if you want to win.
Whole problem. That was the whole problem in Miami was they wanted to go the youth route, but they had this star in Jimmy Butler that wanted to win now. That's why they're clashing heads right now. That's why they were clashing heads a month ago when the trade process was happening. Jimmy Butler needed a second guy around him. He was done doing it by himself. He did not want a young star like Tyler Hero. He did not want a young star like Bam Adebayo. He wanted to go out and get a Giannis, go get a Kyrie Irving, go get somebody. They tried with Kyle Lowry, but Kyle Lowry was a shell of himself at that time, unfortunately. But that's my point. They needed to go out and get a second guy, and they didn't put a second guy around him. And Jimmy Butler was like, "Yo, I'm not waiting 4 years for these guys to be in their prime for us to go win a championship. I want to win now." And now this brings me over to my second spot is, how's Jimmy Butler doing right now?
He's down 3-1. Sorry.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. He is. What's the score right now of that game, Denzel?
So currently, right now, the score of that game, I believe it's in. Oh no, the game just went final. Timberwolves win the series 121-110, 4-1, gentlemen's sweep.
Okay, so that's fair enough. But if Steph Curry is on this team, do we
Yeah,
see them
for
go
sure.
further?
But see,
Oh
You know what
yeah.
I
this
mean?
is this
That's
was
that's the other
always
thing.
CJ. You can't like with Jimmy, like, and I said this back when the trade. I said the season is going to come down to they're healthy or they're not. And unfortunately, they're two stars at this stage in their career. It's hard to bank off them because you can't rely that they'll be healthy in the playoffs.
Well, that's exactly why you needed to put Jimmy with another guy that was. This is why Miami was having a problem. Miami has built themselves up to be this big market team, and then out of nowhere, they were like, you know what? Let's go try to build in the draft. Let's go try the youth route. And that was their problem because they had a guy like Jimmy Butler that was like, hey, I want to stay. I want to go win championships with Miami. And you didn't give him a contract. You didn't give him a guy to go with. It was just Jimmy Butler. And not just that, we have Pat Riley over here saying that he doesn't regret anything, knowing that 7 out of those 10 best performances in a Miami Heat uniform come from Jimmy Butler.
I think a big
It just, like, me personally, if I'm the player, I'm pissed off too. You know what I mean?
I think
And
two
you can't tell me that if you were in Jimmy Butler's shoes right now, you wouldn't be pissed off about all the things that happened in Miami either.
Wait, I just
Now,
think there's two things that I have to. We talk about the Kyle Lowry signing, which he pushed for, which is where a lot of their money went. So
yep,
that made it harder to sign other stars. You picked Kyle Lowry, and unfortunately, it didn't work out. Then there was the whole Damian Lillard thing, and they were really confident they could just trade, nothing to the Trailblazers, and they missed out on that because it seemed like dead set. Everybody was like, he's going to Miami, and then he went to Milwaukee.
yep,
I mean, that's more on Pat Riley, so we can see both sides of this argument.
yes.
That was a chance to get him a star, and the Heat were kind of in this weird, like, Hero's good. Like, I mean, he definitely showed some prowess this season, but they were like, oh yeah, this was before his All-Star season. They were like, give up Dame for Hero, and you're good. So I don't know if that's just
And
bad.
and if you're
Branding.
if you're in any situation with Miami, right? If you look at Alonzo Mourning, if you look at Shaquille O'Neal and Dwayne Wade, if you look at LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh, and they said, "Hey, we want Damian Lillard," you're gonna tell me that Pat Riley doesn't go after him?
I mean, he got Shabazz Napier for LeBron, so.
You get what I'm saying, though.
Yes,
You
no,
get what I'm
that's what I'm
saying.
saying. Like, if it was definitely a different. I feel like maybe if Jimmy was on, if this was like 2014, 2013, maybe Pat's got a different mindset. And that's like one point before. Like he seems to be losing kind of the art of the game because it's changed so much.
Yeah.
You can't. His way of thinking doesn't exactly dominate as much as it did.
But at the same time, you got to look at it as, we look at Isaiah Thomas in the Boston. I know I'm bringing up Boston a lot, but there's a lot of things that have happened in Boston in the last 5-10 years. We look at Isaiah Thomas with Danny Ainge, and we looked at how Danny Ainge. This was really the beginning of the end of Danny Ainge, is when he traded Isaiah Thomas for Kyrie, right? That's kind of what we're seeing right now with Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler gave everything to that Miami organization, tried to win them a championship, being the only star on the team, and gave everything that he had to the point where he was barely able to stand. And they let him go. Like we talk about loyalty. And that I love Pat Riley, but that right there, that's not loyalty. That's not loyalty to your players. That's not loyalty to your stars. Yes, you have a big market, but now why is a star coming to Miami knowing what just happened with Jimmy Butler? That's my stance on it. So,
I mean, take it a step further. It's not showing loyalty to the fans.
Yeah.
I mean, who pays your salary, Holmes? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, I mean that like that's where the road meets the road for me, and I think a lot of uh, fans have a lot of unanswered questions about how this whole entire situation was handled, and I think that's where Pat Riley has some regret is how he handled the situation as a whole. But I will say this. Some of the things Pat Riley did was completely backwards at the beginning of this season. You know, you won't last offseason, you don't, oh, we're not gonna give him a contract extension. And then Jimmy Butler's asking and requesting for a trade. Okay. No, we're not gonna trade him either. Like, you gotta give him something. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, either you meet him at the table, you meet Jimmy Butler at the table and go, listen, man, like we want to make sure everyone eats, including yourself. Like, we want to make sure you're here for the future. Now, I'm not saying Jimmy Butler, I'm not saying Jimmy Butler burned bridges or anything like that. What I think happened is him not getting a contract extension put a sour taste in Jimmy Butler's mouth. And then now it sours his mind of what he thinks of Pat Riley and what he thinks of Alonzo Mourning. Alonzo Mourning's his right-hand man there. And it's like, so it's, you know, it put a massive sour taste in his mouth. And I think that's where Jimmy Butler started to act out. And then the 2-3 suspensions, the indefinite one for how many games. And so,
But to be fair, it wasn't Minnesota Jimmy Butler.
No. I agree. It wasn't Minnesota Jimmy.
That I also think Jimmy Butler was in the right for. By the way, I think that he was like Jimmy. Jimmy doesn't act out unless he needs to act out, and when he needs to act out, it's usually about winning, and that's what it comes down to. Minnesota didn't want to win. Because Baby Cat and Andrew Wiggins were not on that level. And then after that, you had in Miami when, you know, he wanted a second star and they didn't give it to him. And that's what it came down to. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, I don't think it necessarily came down to the contract extension until afterwards. They didn't put a second star around him and they had a championship team. You know what I mean?
And there also was the thought of this, that maybe Pat Riley thought Bam Adebayo was going to step up into that second star role.
Not this early though. Like
I agree. Agree, but that could have been Pat Riley's mindset, thinking we have a good, solid big man who can arguably.
But that's not who the marketing was around. The marketing was around Hero, and he wasn't Tyler Hero that we know of this year. He wasn't the reliable Tyler Hero. He was a young stud that was coming up, and Jimmy Butler was like, hey, I need a second star. Maybe we should trade him and get what we can for him, because we can go out and get a guy like Paul George. We can go out and get a guy like Kawhi Leonard. We can go out and get a guy like Damian Lillard. They were all in Miami's trade rumors. You know what I mean? Joel Embiid was another one that was in Miami's trade rumors. And we all know that Jimmy Butler loved playing with Joel. He just hated Philly. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you can look at it as a contract extension, but at the end of the day, the way that I'm looking at it is, listen, Jimmy just wanted to win. Jimmy wants to win. And right now, he's in the perfect spot to win. Yes, they have a short window to win. But yes, I do think Jimmy Butler will win a championship next to Steph Curry as long as both of them are on the court. That's what it comes down to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And obviously, like we've said in past episodes, health plays a massive factor. And unfortunately, Steph Curry, with the hamstring injury in game one there, like he played a quarter and a half, and that's all we got out of Curry in this series. And I would have loved to see a healthy Golden State in these playoffs and just see what kind of noise they're going to make, what kind of debauchery they're going to create in these playoffs. And I mean, obviously them beating Houston, I think, like, I'm telling you, you were this close with your call about Houston when they were down 3-1. Like, or 3-2
I
or
was
whatever it was. You're
I was a
like,
few games off.
yeah,
But
you weren't off by much. And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
I think a lot of people pick Golden State in that regard. And so the only thing that drives me batty sometimes with Jimmy Butler is sometimes, and I think we've seen this in the last couple of playoff runs, the last couple of playoffs, and we even saw it in these playoffs here where he has this monster performance. And 38, whatever, he's got 15, 16 free throw attempts by himself. Yeah. And then the other 3-4 games of the series, it's like
slumped.
It's like a magician. He's gone. He's got this disappearing act.
But that's why he needs a second star around him.
No, I agree.
That's what I'm saying.
He needs a Jaylen Brown to a Jason Tatum. Like he
exactly.
Needs that, yeah, he needs that kind of player. I absolutely agree with you, and I think that's where Pat Riley mishandled the situation. I bet you Jimmy went up to him multiple times and was like, "I need number 2 guy." And yeah, I get that you're looking young, and I mean, like you said, we didn't get the Tyler Hero early, like we have now. Yeah. When Jimmy Butler was still in Miami. And so Jimmy Butler is not willing to wait to try and win a title. I mean, and so, his window is it's getting smaller and smaller by the minute here.
But so is Steph Curry's. So that's the reason why I think that's a perfect window, is because, hey, you got 2 stars that want to win a championship now on the same team, one of them being the best 3-point shooter ever, one of them being the guy that can go to the hoop and go to the bucket and get you a bucket at any given time, and both being the Celtics kryptonite. I think that's a perfect matchup for a guy like Jimmy Butler. But at the same time, the other thing that I do want to say to you, and this will be the last thing that I say about the Jimmy Butler thing, is when we look at the some of the best teams in NBA history, when we look at some of the duos in NBA history, could they do it without the other person? Could Dwayne Wade and LeBron do it alone? Like, could LeBron do it without Dwayne Wade at that time? Could Kevin Durant do it without Steph Curry at that time? Could Kobe do it without Shaq at that time? Could Scottie and Jordan do it alone at that time? The reason why these teams are so great and these duos are, we automatically think of these guys, is because those duos worked perfectly. And that's what Jimmy Butler needed. And I think that if they can stay healthy, that's what Jimmy Butler has right now with Steph Curry.
Yeah, no, I can't knock you off of Curry and Butler. Like you said, Butler fits like a hand in a glove with this offense.
Yeah.
And because Jimmy Butler doesn't need to have the ball in his hands to be impactful. We see what he has done on the defensive end of the ball. And so Jimmy Butler brings it on both ends of the floor on a nightly basis. And so my thing with Jimmy is as much of him being in the right, I will say this, the one thing that did bother me a little bit, that does bother me, we talk about Pat Riley and him regretting how he mishandled the whole situation. To me, Jimmy Butler, in terms of handling it professionally, that's where I have an issue. And I think that's where, okay, you have distrust with, I wouldn't say necessarily ownership, but you have distrust with management, not getting you a second player or not giving you the contract extension. And to kind of act out, it kind of reminds me of Scottie Pippen and how
not even close.
Jerry Krause. I know it's not close.
Not even close. Scottie Pippen was mad because he didn't get a contract playing right next to the best player of all time. Jimmy Butler didn't have that. Jimmy Butler didn't have that guy next to him. And that's the reason why he acted out. And then the contract thing came afterwards. And then that's when it all started getting blamed on the contract, because it was like, all right, if you're not going to put another guy next to me, pay me. And if you look at any given person at any given time, they're going to do the same exact thing. Same exact thing. If not 10 times worse. So I completely with the Scottie Pippen part, I completely disagree. Now, if you look at it as, hey, it's a little tantrum, cool. Well, what is Pat Riley doing right now? Same exact thing.
I mean, you could say that, but where I think the disagreement is that Scottie Pippen was making just as many contributions on the floor as Jimmy Butler. And
Sure.
This is a guy who's second in scoring, second in rebounds, first in assists on the Chicago Bulls teams, of those 90s teams. And sixth in, we could talk about how many minutes he played. He was 1 or 2 on the team in minutes played. And he's 122nd in the league in being paid. Mm-hmm. And now I'm not saying that Scottie Pippen didn't put himself in his own shoot himself in his own foot with the 7-year, $18 million contract. But I understand Scottie Pippen's side of it, making sure that people in his corner are taken care of. But when you're producing numbers like that and you're a perennial all-star like Jimmy Butler, this is where I see the similarities, because both of these guys deserve more money, or at least a better contract than what was given, or even a contract. Jimmy Butler didn't even get a contract offer. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I see the similarities. That's where I'm at with that. That's, so.
But here's the difference between Jimmy and Scottie Pippen. Jimmy just wanted a second guy to play with. He wanted to go get traded if he wasn't going to get that second guy in Miami. Scottie Pippen was playing next to the best player of all time, was winning championships, and because of money decided to go take a surgery that put him out for a good, half of a year?
Well, he did that to rub his nose at management for not
Exactly. So it's completely different. The two scenarios are completely different. Jimmy
Butler not wanting to play is his way of rubbing his nose at management.
Yeah, I guess you could say it. I guess you could say it like that. But Jimmy Butler wanted to win. Scottie Pippen wanted to get paid. That was the difference.
If Jimmy Butler wanted to win, why did he want to stay in Miami so bad? They knew he wasn't. They weren't going to get a second star, and he seemed so.
He didn't want to stay in Miami so bad. He wanted to leave.
Originally, when he wanted the contract, if they had offered the contract that he asked for, no questions asked, he would have taken it, and the Miami would have never gotten another star. It would have just rolled out the same squad, and he would have been content with, not getting over the top. Because I feel like at this stage he's also valuing money a little more than. I'd say
at that point. All right, at that point, if you're in a place that you want to stay and you want to actually win with, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to get you a second star, but you still want to stay in Miami, what's the obvious scenario in that?
Well, if you want a ring, then that just seems like you can't have it both ways. If you
I hear you, but the mood changed once Jimmy got pissed off. And that, I agree completely with that. But with Scotty's comparison, I don't agree with that at all. Like I said, he was playing with the best player of all time. He was winning regardless. When Michael Jordan was on the floor, you knew that they were a problem, regardless if Scotty was there or not. They had Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman on the floor, and they were still putting up the best record in the league. That's like you got to look at that and be like, all right, well, that was just Scotty being selfish and Scotty wanting more money. That's what that came down to.
But wouldn't you argue that Jimmy's doing the same thing? What if he took less money? Then there's more likely chance they could sign a star in the offseason.
Is it? Or would they go draft another guy and try to build him up to be that second guy, like they were trying to do with Tyler Herro and Bam?
You can't really argue theoretics, because again, a lot of what they tried to do was trades. And trades are also easier if you have money. I mean,
no,
they shouldn't have paid Duncan Robinson $100 million. That was also
110%, 110%. But like that's the type of thing that I'm saying is like they were so focused on the youth that they were already past. Like Miami and Pat Riley, it looked as if they were already looking past Jimmy Butler. That's what it looked like. And if you're Jimmy Butler, I don't care who it is. If that is the case scenario, and you just brought them to 2 finals, and they're already looking past you, that's not right on management.
I said they did the same thing to D Wade, and I mean he's still kind of.
That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? That's not right.
I'm not surprised. I guess it's horrible because like I just expect no loyalty.
That's what I'm saying. You know, that comes down to Pat Riley being Pat Riley, and that's something that he needs to get better at. That doesn't have to do with Jimmy Butler. Scottie Pippen had to do with Scottie Pippen. He wanted to get paid. They said, we got Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman, and we can't pay you that right now. And then after that, he went on to get a surgery in the middle of the season. Like, that's like, or at the beginning of the season, whatever it was. It was like summer camp when he got it, right? And he would be back at like half of the season or 3/4 of the season, playoffs, whatever it was. Like that's Scottie. That has nothing to do with what Jimmy Butler was dealing with. It was a total separate situation, and it was just Scottie Pippen being selfish on his end. You know what I mean? And it almost cost him a championship. So,
yeah, I mean, I think both of them were selfish in their own ways in terms of trying to, look out for the people in their corner as well as trying to find, hey, can you give me a second star or are you going to pay me? So, I mean, I don't blame Jimmy Butler for going up to Pat Riley and going, hey, I we made the finals in 2020. We got our, I don't like saying it this way, but we got our ass whooped against the Lakers in the bubble.
That's because they were just mentally done, though. Like as soon as they got there,
they also lost.
Like it was done.
But you could say the same for the 23 run when they got to the finals. They were so like Jimmy Butler averaged over 40 minutes a game in those playoff runs to the finals, and so come on, speak to me because of
that's my point. That's exactly my point right there.
Honestly,
that's exactly my point.
Problem was overachieving, which really just kind of threw. They like we don't expect to get here. Then they get there, and then it's like now we have to do something, but we're not going to do something.
Yeah,
so, and that's what I'm saying, and that's what I mean by like they were already looking past Jimmy. They were like we're not supposed to be here right now. It's good that we are, but we're not even supposed to be here. That's like if you're Jimmy Butler, that would piss you off too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would piss anybody off.
Exactly.
Piss
my
anybody
point.
off. You don't even have to be a player.
That's why I'm on Jimmy's side with it. Because if I was in his shoes, I probably would have acted out worse. That's just me. Like,
he's going on Antonio Brown, and if that
someone cue the Undertaker music or something.
Literally.
Look out. But all right. So with that being said, we're gonna go into our last quick break here with Viva Tequila Seltzers. CJ keeps talking about these guys, and so here's a quick ad for them. And as always, stay tuned.
Jared, hey, we're gonna need you to tone it down with the Summer Friday thing, okay?
What are you talking about?
Well, for one, it's not summer anymore.
Oh, really?
Coconut. Also, who is this?
I'm the caddy.
Oh, he's my intern.
Sorry, intern. I'm his intern.
Yeah, he's doing a great job.
No golfing in the office, okay? Summer Fridays are over. You can keep the Hawaiian shirt, but the rest of the stuff, all right? Are you grilling?
Oh, yeah. Did you want a burger or a hot dog?
No, grilling in the office.
That's a good point. We should take this outside.
No, that don't. You put that right back down.
Yo, it's all in the hips.
Oh, dude, come on, we gotta go. Let's go.
And that was Viva Tequila Seltzers. Like I said, CJ is their global ambassador, especially for the flavor watermelon.
Yes.
So if you guys haven't tried them out, go give them. Go buy a 4-pack. Are they coming in 4-packs or 6-packs? Where are they coming in?
I'm pretty sure it's 4-packs, but I will say I am also starting to like the lemon one now that we're heading into that summer. So I'm telling you, go
All right,
try
guys, you
it.
heard it here first. Lemon to go ahead.
Watermelon, and lemon. I'm telling you. Yeah.
All right. All right. And with that, we're going to head into our last segment of the night, our history segment of the night. We had a snippet history segment talking about the 85 draft being rigged, but this is the official history segment, and that is talking about our favorite big fours that have graced the NBA court. And for me, I put this into two separate titles: the ones that I like that won a ring, and the ones that I like that didn't win a ring. So, Darren, we're going to start with you on this one. Who were your favorite big fours?
I feel like after we talked about this before, definitely could have done way more research on just general big four. If we're gonna break it up like that, like who won and who didn't, man, that's hard. I think for winners, we're gonna talk winners. I really like the 04 Pistons, just to be so basic. Just like general a team that won, Ben Wallace, Sheed, Rip Hamilton, Chauncey Billups. I mean, that was just a fun early 2000s teams and kind of a decade that was dominated by the Lakers and the Spurs. To see just this like team that was good. They were slowly building themselves up in the 2000s, but to just kind of like come out and what was deemed as like this Lakers dream team in 04, that was also a big four that Kobe, Shaq, Gary Payton, Carl, stay away from my 13-year-old Malone. That was a good team, but yeah, so that was a fun year. I really like those 04 Pistons for winners. We're going to talk about teams that didn't win. The Baby Thunder always hurt. That was kind of into a really enjoyable era of basketball. And you can argue Big Four. I consider Ibaka a key member. In that 2012 year, I wouldn't say he was at that level yet. But if we're just going to talk about general, like, where they're in the Big Four, I'd say Ibaka was more like going into like that 2016 year. They almost made it to the final. Ibaka was still young, but I liked that 2012 team that made it to the finals.
All right.
CJ, what are your thoughts on the Big Four? I mean, is there a particular era of basketball that you look to when you went to this when we went and talked about this?
I mean, if I'm looking at era, I mean, we all know the era that I'm going to be looking at. I think it's pretty self-explanatory that we would be looking at the early 2000s to the early 2010s. So that would be the area that I would be looking at. But since you want to break it up onto who won and who didn't, I'll start with who won first. I have 4 teams for the teams that won. Like you said, Darren, I agree with you. Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Rasheed Wallace, and Ben Wallace, they're on my list. I cannot. If you look at a Big Four, you cannot not put them on the list. You know what I mean? Like, they are probably one of the anonymous winners for people to put on a Big Four list. I did not put the Celtics for 08, but I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. If you know me, I'm a Boston Celtics fan. So I guess I'll put that as an honorable mention. But I do have Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Kawhi Leonard. The reason why I have this on my list is because you had a rookie Kawhi Leonard lock up a prime LeBron James. I mean, that's what it comes down to for me. And this team was unbelievable with the ball movement. Like, if you look at the 2010s San Antonio Spurs ball movement from 1 to 12 or 1 to 15, whatever it is that the teams had during that time, they could all pass the ball and get the best shot. And that's something that I still haven't seen since then. So that's the reason why I have them on my list. Now I look at, the glorious best player, GOAT, whatever you want to call it in the world, Michael Jordan. I have both of them on I have both of them on here. I have MJ, Scotty, Rodman, and Kukoc, and I have MJ, Scotty, Grant, and Paxson. I think that MJ, Scotty, Grant, and Paxson is the better one. If you know me, you know that I said that three-peat was more influential to Michael Jordan's career than the second three-peat. But I do have both of those in my top 4 for teams that won.
So, I mean, I kind of dug deep into the archives on this one. I mean, one of the teams that I had, one of my favorite Big Fours that won a championship, we're gonna go back-to-back champion Detroit Pistons in the 80s here. We're gonna go IT, the original IT, Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman, and Bill Laimbeer.
Okay.
Only because if we don't have that mountaintop, we don't have the 2 3-peats of MJ. Like, that's
Fair enough.
And
Fair enough. Yeah, I like that.
And the other side of it is too is, we talk about big market teams and the 85 draft and all this stuff. And for me, it was always Celtics Lakers, that like 5-year stretch where it was Celtics Lakers, Celtics Rockets, Celtics Lakers, like from like 80, I think it was like 84 to 88. It was like just that. And so, obviously it was Magic, Bird, MJ. MJ was that next guy. And there's just this little 2-year window where this one team out of Detroit, this small market team out of Detroit, just messed up the whole storyline. And they, the moniker, the Bad Boys, like people wanted to watch them fight, man. Like, these guys were killing people out on the floor. And, obviously an era of NBA basketball that you'll never see again. You'll never see guys like that. And by the way, what they did back in the 80s, back in those bad boy days, clobbering people like that. I mean, in today's NBA, you're getting 10, 20 game suspension. There's no doubt in my mind about some of that. In their day, $5,000 fine. So it's like completely two different eras of basketball there. But yeah, I had to put them on the list just because if Jordan doesn't have that mountaintop and have that one team he struggled to get over the hump against, I don't think we see the 3-peats that we see from MJ. So that's why I have the 88, 89, 89, 90 Detroit Pistons. I went back in the archives on my number 2 team on a team that won a ring, and that is the 82-83 76ers. Julius Erving, Moses Malone, Maurice Cheeks, and I think it's Andrew Toney. They called him the Boston Strangler. And there's another guy on this team, Bobby Jones, who was a key contributor, who was also third in Defensive Player of the Year voting that year. I mean, that's one of the more underrated Big Fours to win a championship. And so I had to put the 83 76ers on this team because one of my favorite players of all time is Dr. J. I mean, like, if you guys haven't seen his tape, please go watch the highlight reels of Dr. J playing, especially at, like, there's even some old tape of him playing at, like, Rucker Park in New York City, and some of the tape of it is incredible to watch. So I highly recommend that. Darren, you just had to take the one that I had to not win a ring, and that was the baby Thunder. The 2012 Thunder there with Durant, Westbrook, Ibaka, and James Harden there. But I'm gonna go. That was definitely on the top of my list. One of my favorites is the mid '90s Orlando Magic. Shaq, Penny Hardaway, Dennis Scott, and Nick Anderson. I mean, oof, that if they could have kept that team together, man, holy smokes, dude. They were on the come up for sure. They got to the finals. Obviously, 45 isn't 23 and all that jazz. And so the mid 90s Orlando Magic, when they were just starting to they were early in their tenure as a franchise within the first 5 years of them being a franchise. And they got to the finals based off of two lottery draft wins, one Shaquille O'Neal, two Penny Hardaway via trade. They originally drafted Chris Webber, but they traded with the Golden State Warriors, the 1 and 3 pick there. So they got Penny Hardaway, and that was a match made in heaven. And if you guys haven't seen it, highly recommend ESPN 30 for 30's film, This Magic Moment. Really good film on how that team got brought together and how it all fell apart. But other teams I was really fond of, Big Four wise. Give me the mid to late 2000s Phoenix Suns. Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire, Joe Johnson, Sean Marion. Like they had their offense was in 7 seconds or less. Like that's how fast paced that offense was. How many times I've seen or you heard Steve Nash to Amari Stoudemire on an alley-oop, like, back-to-back MVPs for Steve Nash. In those 2 of those years were those back-to-back MVPs for Steve Nash. Joe Johnson, another one of those draft picks that the Celtics wish they held on to. Just throwing that one out there and leaving that one there in its corner. And then obviously Sean Marion, who was a key contributor on both sides of the ball, not just with the Phoenix Suns. Unfortunately, the Phoenix Suns, like Darren said, kept coming across the San Antonio Spurs or the LA Lakers in those playoffs, and they just could never get over the hump. And Mike D'Antoni was the coach of those teams back in the mid 2000s for Phoenix. And then I have 2 more on this list. 1 is on the list. 2 is an honorable mention. The second one's an honorable mention, but number 1 is give me the late 2000s Orlando Magic. Dwight Howard, Jameer Nelson, Rashad Lewis, and Hedo Turkoglu. No one expected them to even get past the Celtics in 2009 in that playoff run to get to the finals to ultimately lose to the Lakers in 5 games. But they were a fun team to watch. I always enjoyed Hedo Turkoglu's game. Rashad Lewis had one of the weirdest jump shots in NBA history, but it went in. He was green. And so Jameer Nelson, a great guard at the point. Him and Dwight Howard had a phenomenal connection, especially on the pick and roll with the alley-oops there. And then my honorable mention, we're going back to the late 80s, early 90s, Golden State Warriors. And we're talking about Run TMC, Tim Hardaway Sr., Mitch Richmond, and Chris Mullins, a young Chris Mullins. And then the 4th guy on that team is he's from Lithuania there. It was like Marciulionis or something was his last name, like that. Those guys were incredible to watch. How can you one of the original crossovers, the OG crossover, Tim Hardaway Sr. there.
The best.
Dude, that double cross, dude. Come on, bro. And then you had the sweet shooting left-handed shooter in Chris Mullins. One of the most underrated jump shots in NBA history, Chris Mullins. and then Mitch Richmond, who was a slasher, who was not afraid to be physical on the interior as well, and he was a guard. So, and then you had a Marshunionis that came off the bench. I believe he ended up winning a Six-Man of the Year one of those years in the late '80s, early '90s. But that was my honorable mention. Was the particularly the 1990 1991 Golden State Warriors of Run TMC and Marshunionis coming off the bench.
All right, so should I give you guys my non-winners now?
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
So I guess I'll start off with the Orlando Magic, but I'm surprised because I said a different Orlando Magic team. I said I like how you put Dwight Howard in here. I'm gonna do Dwight Howard, Jameer Nelson, Rashad Lewis, and Vince Carter. Now, if you know
Ooh.
me, you know that I can't go without a history list without Vince Carter, especially Darren. Darren knows that best. So I definitely had to add them in here. The other one that I had, so I have two more for no winner, or three more for no winners, and then I have the best, what I think is the best. So the other three that I have for the no winners is I have the Clippers, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, and Jamal Crawford. I think that team was really fun to watch, especially growing up watching them and everything like that. I mean, I looked at that team as one of the greatest teams to ever live until I actually knew what NBA history was. So I had to put them up here. I'm going to put another fan favorite for mine up here. I'm going to give you Chris Webber. I'm going to give you White Chocolate Jason Williams. I'm going to give you Peja, and I'm going to give you Vlade Divac. I had to put the Sacramento Kings up here for the simple reason of they should be NBA champions for that team. Me personally looking at it. I know a lot of people think that Mike Bibby is better than Jason Williams, but I just think that Jason Williams brought the same energy that Marcus Smart brought to the Celtics. You know what I mean? And yes, I do think that Drew is great, but Marcus Smart was the real deal in Boston. I think of that in the same way of Jason Williams and Mike Bibby. Mike Bibby was great. Don't get me wrong. But Jason Williams was Sacramento. And so for me, I had to put the Jason Williams team on here. The last team that I have for non-winners is you mentioned the OKC Thunder. Both of you did. I like your thinking. I'm going to go a few years after that. I'm going to pick Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, Serge Ibaka, and Steven Adams. I think that team was very exciting to watch. We saw prime Russ with prime KD, and they should have won a championship, but KD ended up leaving for the Golden State Warriors. So those are my teams for that didn't win. I think the best Big Four that we have ever seen, though, I'm going to give it to you right here, right now. I'm looking at Dirk. I'm looking at Terry. I'm looking at Kidd. And I'm looking at Tyson Chandler. Like I said, that 2011 championship run, I think that's really unbeatable. And to know that was a Big Four, and, you know, that wasn't expected to be a Big Four, I had to put them at the best Big Four in my eyes.
Wow. I mean, I love you talking about people forget how loaded that 2010, 2011 Orlando Magic team was. You had Turkoglu, Rashad Lewis, Dwight Howard. People forget a young JJ Redick was on that team.
Yep.
Vince Carter, obviously. Gilbert Arenas was on that team.
Yeah, but Gilbert wasn't Gilbert.
I know Gilbert wasn't Gilbert, but still, man, like to have that guy coming off the bench, and also, you know, White Chocolate was on that team too. Jason Williams was also on that team as well. That I love that one. That was a really good one. But
it's funny that both Bibby and Jason Williams both got their championship in Miami.
That is true.
That's funny. to think about, knowing how like their careers have like always been like intertwined with each other.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's I mean, because even I mean, I
And they
can't
were
say
both role players. They were both role players at the time too. So
that is true. That is very true. I mean, there was I mean, they're not really an honorable mention, but they were a team that was pesky. I mean, they took, they took the '08 Celtics to 7 games in the first round. The '08 Atlanta Hawks there, Bibby, Joe Johnson, Josh Smith, Al Horford. Like, yeah, you can shake your head all you want, homie, but like,
nah.
I mean,
Homies didn't have a chance against Boston or Orlando or
and they
Cleveland
definitely did. They
or
forced game
Miami.
7, bro. Like, no one gave them a chance in that series. And they forced game 7 because Boston couldn't win on the freaking road. Like,
Nah, I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know. I'm not with that one.
I mean, I'm just throwing these
I
out
hear
there
you.
because we're talking about ones that went deep into the postseason. There's big fours that didn't even have a chance of getting out of the second round or even the first round. And
I
so,
know. Look
I
at the
mean,
Lakers with Russ, LeBron, Carmelo Anthony, and Anthony Davis. I know. I'm with you.
yeah, they're like that one. I mean, you look at that, Russ, and you're like, how did these guys not go deep? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, it makes you shake your head sometimes. Like, I'm not saying the Atlanta one is closely comparable, but I'm just saying, like there's a few of them out there that are just like, dude, like, who knows what would have happened if those guys stayed together? Like, you just don't know. And so, let's just be real. LeBron wouldn't want anyone to stay. So, we'll move on from that one.
Y'all did me so dirty that segment. Y'all had all these teams, and then you don't laugh at my Karl Malone joke, despite how uncomfortable it was. I'm just leaving.
Hey, bro. Listen. You know, it's all good. It's all good.
I mean,
What? You'll get better. You'll get better with the history segments.
I
I
was
know
like,
you
yeah,
got it.
yeah.
I know you got it in you.
I'll throw out the two most obvious teams. I'm set.
Yeah, I know you got it in you. I've seen you talk about it, Darren. I know you got it in you.
I gave you my list, and you discredited all of them like off rip before the. Like, well, I'm gonna let them do all the talking.
Yeah.
I mean, Darren, is there anyone out of the ones that we picked that you're like, ooh, I didn't think about them?
I think there's just like one I feel like we didn't really talk about for winners. I think the 17 Warriors. Just we're going to talk about pure dominance for a season. That's so obvious. I wish I thought of more like non-basic. I had the most basic ones. Sorry. But they were, I mean, come on. 67 wins. Lost one game in the playoffs. That was a fun year, despite how disappointing the team was.
It was not a fun year at all.
No. I mean,
I'll give you one. I'll give you one to credit that one. Okay, I'll give this one to you. Kawhi Raptors. There you go.
You just the Kawhi laugh yourself. Was that
Fred
a big
No. Was it Fred VanVleet or was it Norman Powell that was part of that? It was
Norman
Fred.
Powell. I think they were both on that team. Norman Powell and
but like, which one was the starter? It was Fred, right?
Yeah. VanVleet was the starter. Powell was
So
off the bench.
it was Fred VanVleet, Kawhi Leonard, Pascal Siakam, and Marc Gasol.
Oh yeah, Danny Green though, obviously best player.
Well, Danny Green was washed at the time.
No. He was in that Kawhi trade. He was the best player in that trade.
I mean, and the other thing is too is like when we look at winners, I'm actually kind of surprised none of the three of us had said it, but what about the '80s Lakers? Kareem, Magic, Worthy, and Michael Cooper. Like, the Cooper loop. You had James Worthy doing his thing on the interior.
You could say the same thing about the '86 Celtics, though.
I stand by that.
Oh, absolutely. And you could flip Dennis Johnson in there or Bill Walton. Take your pick.
I'm gonna be real with you. I'm kind of a little biased, but I'm taking my guy ML Carr.
Greatest trash talk of all time, bro.
Yeah.
Dude. Yeah, I mean, that golden era of basketball, the Lakers and the
No, Danny
Celtics,
Ainge
like,
was good on those teams too.
A lot of players were good on those teams, bro.
Fair, fair. Danny Ainge.
I
That team
mean,
was
another.
loaded.
Oh, absolutely. I know I'm going back way, way back into way back into the '60s here, but what about the '60s Celtics? Tommy Hines and Bill Russell, Bob Cousy, Casey Jones.
They only won.
I
You could
understand
say
That's
you
not.
could say the same thing about the Lakers though. When they had Jerry West, they had Wilt, they had Gail Goodrich, and
Elgin
uh,
Baylor.
Elgin Baylor.
Yeah. Oh
You
yeah,
know?
no, it's like you could go back even into those eras. Like obviously, I can't say. I mean, there's only what 12, 15, maybe 16 teams in the league at the time, so it's a completely different era of basketball. But when you talk about big fours and dominance, these teams come up to mind. And there's another one that came to my mind was, we talk about the early '70s New York Knicks with
Yep.
Walt Frazier, Earl the Pearl Monroe, Willis
Yep.
Reed, and Dave
Yep.
DeBusschere. People forget who was coming off the bench on those teams. Phil Jackson was coming
Yep.
off the bench on those teams. And so that was one that I didn't even think of, was the early '70s New York Knicks. And I'm just Knicks fans. You got a long way to go, even if you beat the Celtics. I'm just throwing that out there. You got a long way to go before you can even put yourself in a conversation.
Cough, Indiana.
I think any team with Joe Ingles on it was a big.
Joe Ingles, here we go.
Cough.
What are you gonna
We
do?
called it Cleveland. We called
What are you gonna
it
do? The
Cleveland.
2019 Utah Jazz there with Mitchell Gobert and Joe Ingles.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
Can't forget
man.
about my guy Joe Ingles, man.
Dude, you guys are on another one talking about Joe Ingles, man. I swear, dude.
He's all right.
I'm waiting for it. It hasn't happened yet here, but I've been waiting for the segment Joe Ingles or no one else. Or something like I'm waiting for you guys to have
going
just
to the Western Conference Finals. So
Last shot.
Is he on the teams?
Last shot. What did Max Kellerman say about Andre Iguodala? Whatever he said. Whatever he
The
said about
aliens
Andre.
could be aiming the space beam at the Earth. I'm taking Iguodala.
I'm taking Joe Ingles.
Oh.
All right.
Oh,
Anyways,
Max Kellerman,
we
dude.
gotta close out the show.
What a
It's been
dog!
2
What a
hours.
dog! Oh, but with that being said, what a fun show this was here. That's all we got for you guys this week on Dynamics on the Hardwood. We got some credentials to go over. CJ, where can they find you, my brother?
You can find me on Instagram if you look up official.livezone. If you want to get me on X, you can get me at real_live_zone.
Darren, where can the good people find you?
Ah, yes, my super useful Instagram, Darren.Smith0105.
And for me, Deportes Diesel on X. You can also find me on Denzel in Distress on Instagram as well. But with that being said, for Darren, for Official Live Zone, wrong way, and for Sports Runs on Diesel, aka, and that's all we got for you guys tonight. And as always, stay tuned. Deuces.